Walgreens has agreed to stop selling the abortion medication in 20 red states, including red states that have not made the abortion pill illegal. And also they're sending mixed messages about that because later they claimed that they will be selling the abortion pill in states where it is legal. So let's go back, let's talk about how this kerfuffle began. And then I'm gonna go after Gavin Newsom for being unbearable and essentially exploiting this issue to rage tweet with absolutely no plan in place. So again, this whole kerfuffle began when attorneys general in 20 different states, Republican-led states of course, threatened to sue Walgreens if it began selling mifepristone, which is the abortion pill. So the company told Politico that it has since responded to all the officials, assuring them that they will not dispense abortion pills either by mail or at their brick and mortar locations in those states. But the list includes several states where abortion in general and the medication specifically remain legal, including Alaska, Iowa, Kansas, and Montana. So it appears that they were bullied into agreeing to stop selling. Well, to be fair, they haven't started selling the abortion pill anywhere. They plan to, they're waiting on FDA approval to be able to, but they committed to these states initially in saying that they wouldn't sell the abortion pill in those states. Later though, Walgreens says that it does in fact plan on selling the drug in states where it's allowed. Walgreens said it plans to sell mifepristone in any jurisdiction where it is legally permissible to do so, according to a statement. Once we are certified by the FDA, we will dispense this medication consistent with federal and state laws, the company said. Now, Gavin Newsom decided to tweet about this, and he had a pretty declarative statement, which led to a lot of questions that his staff had no answers to. He said, California won't be doing any business with Walgreens or any company that cowers to the extremists and puts women's lives at risk. We're done. We're done, Cenk, we're done.
Oh, are we? Did we actually, what law did we pass?
Well, it appears that Gavin Newsom is engaging in what many politicians love to engage in, which is posturing and theater. For brownie points, for political gain, but it actually ends up doing nothing in the end. Newsom's aides said his administration did not have any details on what cutting ties would entail and is only now reviewing all relationships between Walgreens and the state, including Medi-Cal and covered California contracts. That's the state's Medicaid program.
Yeah. I will say this though, Anna. So this is a little bit of a mixed bag for me. So the Republicans that are suing Walgreens, if you're in a state that banned abortion and this is an abortion pill in essence, I don't agree with you. I think you're oppressing the women in your states, but I understand the logic of it, right? If you're in a state like Kansas or Montana that voted on this issue and your citizens overwhelmingly voted pro-choice, which they did, like in Kansas, by almost 20 points. It was a landslide in an election that mainly had Republicans because it was Republican primaries in that election. That's why the Republicans put it in there. And even so, people were like, no, we're pro-choice in Kansas. All this mythology you've heard about the center-right voters it's not true almost anywhere, right? If you do it issue by issue, progressives win every single time. Minimum wage, abortion, etc. Okay, so Chris Kobach's a monster, and he goes out and he's like, I'm gonna threaten to sue and do all these things to Walgreens if it does not ignore how we voted in Kansas. Okay, so he's like, I can't believe Walgreens believes in democracy. I hate that, and I'm gonna try to punish them. So here, the Gavin Newsom thing's complicated because on the one hand, I like that there's a blue state governor pushing back and go, oh yeah? Okay, now there'll be consequences on the other side if you don't care about democracy and you do want to take away options for women. And I want to come back to what the pill does in a second because I think that's kind of, the different stages are amazing. But on the other hand, as with most things with both Gavin Newsom and almost all politicians, it's all photo ops, right?
100%.
It's all image and theater. Because if you really meant that, what I would have done if I was governor is I would have come up with a plan. And you don't have to do it for months on end, and you don't have to do a committee, et cetera, but get your staff together and go, what are our options in terms of incentives and disincentives for Walgreens? Because I'm serious about this, there should be some consequences. But he didn't do any of that, and you could tell from the reporting, very clearly he didn't. He just went and tweeted about it because he wanted to credit without actually doing it.
1000%. This is part of his campaigning for president. Let's keep it real. That is what he has his sights set on. And it's infuriating for him to say things like, we won't do business with a company that cowards to extremists and puts women's lives at risk, because Gavin Newsom cares so deeply about human lives in the state that overrepresents the number of drug overdose deaths, by the way. Gavin Newsom cares so much about human lives as he leads the state that has the highest percentage of the country's homeless population living and literally dying on the streets. Gavin Newsom cares so much about not cowering to extremists as he cowered to PG&E and bailed them out, the utility, after they refused to update their equipment that was over 100 years old and sparked some of the worst wildfires in California, killing people. Human lives were lost. But Gavin Newsom cares so much, except Gavin Newsom doesn't give a damn. I can't stand Gavin Newsom. I don't know if it's clear to you guys, can't stand him at all because he's nothing more than a greasy, pathetic, narcissistic politician who does nothing to improve the lives of Californians and somehow thinks that, I don't know, he's gonna ride to the presidency because he has a great hairline? No,
yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
Your little theater isn't even cute. It's not impressive, okay? You're trying to pretend like you're actually representing the best interests of women in your state, when in reality you have no intention to do anything whatsoever.
Yeah, so look, well, I was gonna say, well, on the other hand, he might not be wrong that his hairline and theatrics alone might get him to the White House. And the reason he's not necessarily wrong about that is because the reporters love his hairline. They constantly applaud him. No one ever does what you just did, Anna. Show me one other reporter who has ever even criticized Gavin Newsom, let alone in a scathing way, let alone with facts.
That was a scathing way, I will admit that.
Okay, yeah. So no, they constantly fluffing him 100% of the time.
They are. The press does fluff him. Yes.
Yeah, and so since he's a corporate politician and the corporate media has his back 200%, he's not wrong to be arrogant and assume this is going to be a cakewalk. So we'll see if progressives can make any difference, if truth can make any difference. But anyways, that's for another day when he might run a year from now or 5 years from now, et cetera. I know he's planning it. That's why he does this theatrics.
Yeah, of course.
Right. But there's one other silver lining in the story, which is, look, during the pre-2016, corporations had unquestioned rule in America. No one ever dared question a corporation. The press protected them at all lengths. All the politicians protected and served them. But now the Republicans have accidentally opened a door here with their attacks against corporations for being woke or for not oppressing women enough and for actually giving women medicine that they might need, right? And so, but they've opened a door where people are allowed to question corporations. Now we're allowed, we always did it anyway, right? But there was this gaslighting that it was the most unacceptable thing to do. And now the walls are starting to break a little bit.
No, it's all a facade, Cenk. It's all a facade. He's doing exactly what the faux populists on the right do, right? The Tucker Carlson pretending like he cares about corporations, raining terror on Americans, when in reality he loves corporations. Republican lawmakers using populist rhetoric to make it seem like, oh, we're gonna hold these corporations accountable. In the meantime, they aid and abet corporations in stealing from Americans, redirecting or redistributing wealth from the very bottom to their pockets. No, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. What they're doing, what Gavin Newsom is doing in this attack against Walgreens, this phony attack against Walgreens, is he's attempting to provide this illusion of accountability. Okay, the illusion of governance, the illusion of strength. And I can't stand it. I find it disgusting when the right does it, find it disgusting when Democrats do it. Okay, and it should be called out every single time because they should be expected as elected leaders, as elected politicians to actually represent Americans substantively through policy, not through rage tweets that are meant to posture and provide theater.
Anna's speaking passionately, but her logic is impeccable. It's absolutely true. Another good example of it is Pete Buttigieg, who comes out and says, I have wagged my finger at these railroads. If you, there I am, I'm wagging both fingers. It doesn't mean anything. Did you pass a regulation or didn't you? Did you enforce a regulation or didn't you? It's all theater, right?
Yes.
So that is absolutely right. I'm being an optimist and finding a small silver lining.
You're right, you are an optimist.
Okay, and the silver lining is, guys, the illusions have one positive effect. So equality and justice for all, that was an illusion that the founding fathers came up with here in America, right? And some of it was true. It was a lot more equality than before. Some justice, definitely not for all, right? But it was an important illusion that they created because it allowed us to fight for it. It made it a cornerstone of America that you're supposed to have justice for all. Now again, the South didn't believe that at all, and the enormous parts of the North didn't believe it. They didn't treat black people as equal, let alone women. Women only got the right to vote 100 years ago. They definitely didn't believe it, but it put a cornerstone in place that allowed us to fight for it. And now there is a perception that it is not the worst thing in the world to point out something wrong that a corporation is doing. Before, the mainstream media would have ripped your head off and said, how dare you, costing jobs? You're an evil, anti-American job killer. And they still do that to some degree with AOC and Amazon, et cetera. But now the wall's beginning to break, and partly because the right wingers are also beginning to realize big business is not on our side. They're on their own side. They're not on the right, they're not on the left. They're into the bottom line. That's the only thing they care about. So that's the small linings here. But guys, back to Walgreens for a second. This is really important. This abortion pill is very effective, and for the great majority of the time that you're allowed to use it, which is the first 11 weeks, basically. I want you to understand what it is, because the Republicans say, oh, it's a life, it's a precious fetus. For most of the time, it's not even a fetus. So it goes through several different stages in a pregnancy. First stage is a zygote that lasts 4 days. So at that point, it resembles semen a lot more than it resembles a human life. For the first 2 weeks, it's called a blastocyst. So it's like literally removing a cyst. Okay.
Blastocyst?
Yeah, I looked it up. Okay, and then for the first 8 weeks, it's an embryo, or from week 2 to week 8, it's an embryo and not a fetus. So this is all having to do with, is it even viable? Is it even gonna attach to the uterine wall? Is it gonna turn into a fetus, let alone an independent human being, right? So 8 out of the 11 weeks, we're fighting over cysts and zygotes, et cetera. It ain't even anywhere near a human life. Not even close, right? But meanwhile, the Chris Kobachs of the world are like, no, this is more important than the actual woman's life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the actual woman's freedom away, her choice away, her body away, and I'm gonna pressure corporations to do it. And now corporations are stuck in this battlefield, and it's made their life a little bit more difficult. Before, they just greased politicians on both sides.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And got nothing but credit. Now they're stuck in a battle, and it makes the situation a little bit more interesting.
And definitely complicated for the pharmacies like Walgreens, right? But let's move off the jank optimism for 1 second and go back to my pessimism. Because look, it's not just me who's saying it. This is from the Los Angeles Times. Newsom has a tendency to seize on hot button political issues and make attention-grabbing announcements before he has determined how the state will carry out his plan, because he has no plan and he has no intention of creating a plan. And finally, here's what the reality is. According to Walgreens, there were 586 stores in California as of August of 2020. The number should be lower now because a bunch of those stores closed. But nonetheless, the state cannot force those stores to close, leaving only smaller, more punitive actions on the table for state officials. So in terms of what Gavin Newsom can do, he knows his options are extremely limited, but it doesn't matter, because if he can posture as if he's some tough guy who's gonna do something, well, maybe it could help him out for his future political aspirations.
I found yet another silver lining, maybe the third one in this story. Look at this, we found a journalist at the LA Times. A previously unimaginable situation. Taryn Luna, thank you for being a journalist and actually seeing, hey, is he planning to take action?
Right.
What does his administration say? That's called journalism, right? And then being honest with your audience and saying, hey, no, he actually did not make a plan, and this is basically theatrics. Look, LA Times, overwhelming #1 fluffer of Gavin Newsom and corporate Democrats. They wouldn't be honest about them if their life depended on it the great majority of the time. But here, credit where credit is due. If they were real reporters like this, I'd give them nonstop credit. So we found one. Tara and Luna, thank you. Great job of reporting. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.